Good afternoon, everyone, and the great Sabis of 30 with Tony. Here on 30 with Tony, we have a lot of fun and do our best to bring you the very best in news, fun, and entertainment. But before we get started today, we would like to announce that we are dedicating this show to those who have been affected and bereaved by the Los Angeles County wildfires. So our wish today is for you to let our cast entertain you, and when it's over, please pray for those affected and make a contribution in whatever amount you can to a reputable charity to help these poor souls who have lost everything. But for now, get a hot drink, sit back, and enjoy the show. And here is our announcer, Tricky Dick Nixon. Dick? Tricky?
HMO Sabis and the rest of you overbearing, domineering, egg-sucking dogs. Welcome to another edition of 30 with Tony. We got the best news, the bossest music, and amazing classic clips. Any successful leader has got it ahead of great hatchet men. I had all of them Krotz, Alderman, or Richmond Liddy, and they were armed and dangerous, and that is the way to be, so let's get it on.
Well, hi, Kemasabis. It's Tony D'Angelo. It is Thursday, January 9th, 2025, Ada Domini in the year of our Lord. This is the day that God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So happy to have you here for another edition of 30 with Tony. And just so grateful for all of you and all the support you've given me along the way. Very grateful to you, my followers on Twitter, the friends I have made there, the friends I have made along the way, and also to all the people who are actually giving us content to use, music and movies and things. I'm ever so grateful, and my aim here is to give you the best show I possibly can, that I really want to be the best show that you're going to see. So we're working hard. We did a lot of work in here this week in the studios as far as the new equipment the new background, the new lighting. I'm excited. It's like you get tired. You get tired of doing things. You get tired of saying the same thing to the same people and not having them react. You get tired of people reacting to you for something you never did. I can't control that, nor am I really going to care about it. But when we see good done, when we see good things done, we're happy. We're happy, and it's all because of you, because your interest and your following and your circulating and your giving this show to others and telling them to watch is an incredible blessing to me. And last week was really a blessing to me. I was on the Wayne Allen Root Show War with my host and friend Lee Elstead, and we were talking about undue medical debt, and that was something that I felt had to be nationally known, because we're going to do a little bit of that today, but that's really gave a great perspective across the country to I don't know how many thousands of listeners, hundreds of thousands of listeners, as to what's actually taking place here. And, I want them to come back. I want them to come back and see me. I want them to come back and listen to Lee's show, listen to the other guests, listen to me, because that's a blessing we have here in this society, being the First Amendment. Now, people would love to take the First Amendment from you. We talked about that this past Tuesday on the Lee Elstead show with some of the proposed legislation that's happening in Connecticut. Well, we can go on for days about that, and I really don't intend to as such. But basically, nothing makes a controlling, often demo-commie politician, or possibly a Republican politician with demo-commie tendencies, of letting them know that you do not need them. And not only that, but they're getting in the way, and your life would be a whole lot better if they weren't there. That's not every single politician, but unfortunately, it's too many of them. And that's what I intend to do here. I want to give you the tools and encourage you to be eyes and ears, to be my eyes and ears, so that we can take things in here, we can blow them out, we can cut them up, we can dice them, slice them, and give attention to where it's due. That's really the function of what we do here. I'm not here to be liked. I'm glad people like me. I'm glad people love me. I love being loved. I really do. But I'm here to give you what I feel you need. And that's what I want to do. And nobody's making me do this. Nobody is controlling me. I don't account to anybody here but you and my God and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and to the truth. Those are the only things that I account for. And I intend to keep it that way. I mean, if I can't do that by now, I don't want to do anything. What's the point of it? I mean, we've had too much control of the media, of information, of political perspectives and things like that. I don't want to do that. I honestly, truthfully do not want to do that. But I want to start today where we left off last week, because I want to make something very clear with the forgiveness of medical debt. Now, let me just say this. In dealing with people in debt and knowing people in debt and being someone who was in debt and by the grace of God and no longer in debt, debt is a horrible thing. I would rather die than be in debt. I mean, that's just me. I'd rather be in a situation where I don't owe you anything, but yet I don't want to walk around thinking I owe something. And, we all have our own values. We all have our own things. Those are mine. Okay. Don't criticize me for my values. I'm not going to criticize you for yours. We all have to make our choices. But I just want to make one thing very clear. Medical debt is a bad thing. And don't walk out of here and don't walk out of last week's show saying that I am against the forgiveness of the, or shall I say, the lifting of the burden of medical debt. I'm not against lifting burdens. Let's be very clear about that. But I'm going to show you something about that which I think will make it even more clear to you. But what gets me is when politicians stick their faces in things illegally for something they never did and take the credit. That's really the issue, because we live in a society now where our politicians want us to think that we are beholden to them and they get to tell us what to do. Well, listen, I've come to a point in my life, maybe I'm not 100% pleased with every single thing. I am content, thank God, but I don't ever want to be satisfied. And if there's mistakes I've made along the way, and of course I have, I want to learn from those mistakes so that I can be better and I can steer somebody else out of something without having to go through the pain or the torture or the contortions that I did. But let me show you exactly what I mean about this and how politics distorts really, shall we say, could be possibly maybe a good thing. Bear with me for just a second. I'm going to do a share, and I'm getting used to this new equipment, and we're going to get, we're getting better, and we're going to get better as we go along. Okay, here we go. Before I get into the Internal Revenue Code, I want you to look at this. The charity, if you will, the charitable organization of undue medical debt is not anything strictly with Connecticut. Connecticut doesn't make a big show of telling you that. I'm going to actually close that video here. Connecticut does not make a big show of telling you that because the Connecticut news media, or shall we say the whatever you want to call it, the communistic driven function of the political uniparty wants you to think that they are the be all and end all. But this charitable organization, Undue Medical Debt, is doing the same thing in just about, I don't know, about every single Democrat-run state, or if you will, Demo-commie state, but a lot of them. And in Illinois, Governor Pritzker was 72 million. Dan McKee in Rhode Island is going to do something. Katie Hobbs did 50 million in Arizona. Like I told Lee Elsey, I said I wouldn't give Katie Hobbs 50 cents to buy me a can of Diet Coke. But basically, I think you know now, if you've been following this, how this works. A successful donor or a donor of means like Mackenzie Scott, formerly Mackenzie Bezos, of Jeff Bezos' divorced wife, donates an incredible amount of money to this charity, Undue Medical Debt. I believe her totals are $130 million. Undue Medical Debt goes and purchases debt that will never be paid for maybe a penny on a dollar or a dime on a dollar, and then writes people letters saying that the debt is forgiven. Now, if you read down here, you'll see that New Jersey forgives the debt, but and here it is, Undue Medical Debt used about $900,000. They used ARPA money to buy $120 million in past due medical debt. Now, when you think of this in terms of what how could I put it? We've gone over this before. What's a charitable contribution limit? Maybe $5,000. But Mackenzie Scott Bezos, if she wants to get her boy, I say she lives in California, I'm not really sure, but she wants to get her boy Gavin Newsom elected, why not take that amount of money and give it to Undue Medical Debt to forgive the medical debt of Californians and put Gavin Newsom's signature on the letter, albeit illegally. We say illegally because last week we looked at the Internal Revenue Code and Section 4911 of the Internal Revenue Code. We looked at the fact of any attempt to affect the opinions of the general public cannot be allowed in a charity. Now, there's a reason for that. We'll jump back over here. I don't want to make this tax class as such. But when you go over to here, the reason why you have that is you do not want to see this picture. You do not want to see Phil Murphy in New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy, with his Dockers and his white socks and his ridiculous dress saying, I forgave your debt. Because what happens? This person who gets their debt forgiven, they say, oh, praise the Lord, my debt is forgiven. Why shouldn't they say that? They get a letter in, and the letter's got Phil Murphy's signature on it. And, 127,000 New Jersey families. Who did that as far as you're concerned? Phil Murphy. But what about that? Any attempt to influence any legislation through an attempt to affect the opinions of the general public. So affect the opinions. You're over there and you're saying how wonderful it is. And then you get a call. Say you got a debt forgiveness letter today and being January 9th. And when it comes down to his reelection and he's going nose to toes with, I don't know, Bill Spadea or somebody like that, or Jack Ciattarelli, it's like, well, don't you want to vote for Phil Murphy? You've forgiven debt, or after all, he forgave your debt. And think about the possibilities. This can be expanded to student debt, right? They always talk about the student debt crisis. Now, Bernie Sanders and all his Bernie Sandersness comes out and flaps his gums and says, I want to forgive student debt. Well, how are you going to do that unless it's going to be some sign of a kooky mousetrap like this? So it's when you get down to this, if a charity can forgive debt, and there's issues with that as well, because somehow you've got to overwrite the Internal Revenue Code that says forgiveness of a debt is income. And they say, well, they're doing it by making a gift. Well, that's pretty much okay, but it's a gift that's really cloaked in political purposes. And if you don't believe that, what is Phil Murphy's mug doing there, or Ned Lamont's mug, or Susan Beisowitz's mug, or Sean Scanlon's mug? And again, these ratios are incredibly exponential. And how many debts can you forgive and how many votes you can buy? If this is a viable strategy, and again, I've got my doubts, because you're somehow writing over the fundamental section of the Internal Revenue Code that says forgiveness of a debt is income. If you don't believe me, did you ever get a 1099-C for a credit card you couldn't pay? I rest my case. But that being as it is, this has got to be made to where politicians cannot get their mugs on TV, on YouTube, and on letters and things like that, because it's a direct violation of Section 4911. You're affecting the opinion of the voter. Now, great. So that's what I say to undue medical debt. That's what I say to Phil Murphy. That's what I say to King Governor Ned Lamont, the unaccountable, Susan Beisowitz, Sean Scanlon, who probably knows as much about the Internal Revenue Code as I do about the computer system on my car. But that being as it is, let's just get rid of the political influence. Politicians cannot stump. Politicians cannot get involved in this in any single way, shape, or form. Let's make it perfectly legal in accordance with the code. You know what would happen? No debts would ever be forgiven because there's no political leverage. If that happens, Phil Murphy can't come before you and say he forgave your debt. He doesn't care about your debt, doesn't care about you. He cares about getting reelected. So I want to make that part of it clear. If this is quote unquote a good thing to do, if it is, and again, I got my doubts, but if it is, you got to remove the political influence. I challenge you, politician. Of course, you're not going to do it because you're fundamentally turkeys, but I submit that to you. But we're going to go to another subject today. And this is something, I'm just going to stop the share here for a moment. Let me just do that. And I'm going to get right back to it. Starting from when I came on the radio with the Lee Elsey show, and that would have been 2019. I actually started doing, business pieces, commentaries, tax laws. I mean, what got me on the radio was this ridiculous, idiotic proposal from I think it was the Connecticut School Finance Authority, another taxpayer Dodge funded nonprofit, employ your mother, employ your brother, or employ the other brother kind of thing. And, they make numbers and they make spreadsheets and, come out every once in a while and try to, like a lot of these things do, and try to show you something. I'm not saying every single thing they do is valueless, but if I'm looking at a disaster state like Connecticut, I'm saying to myself, the ship is sinking. Why are we taking the deck chairs and why are we arranging them so people will have better seats to listen to the band? But anyway, they came out with this idiotic proposal that you somehow could deduct Social Security taxes from your state income. I may not have it exactly right, but some ridiculous thing like that. And I went to Lee Elsey, who is a friend of Bob Lazari's. We knew of each other, but not in any great, shall I say, familiarity. And I said, may I come on your radio program to talk about this? And he was kind enough to let me on. Now, I take a lot of, and this is the way I am. I don't know about you, but Lee gave me a shot, and I'm very appreciative of that shot, and that's why you'll only find me in Connecticut on that show, because I tried to get on the radio for years. Nobody would pay attention to me. Then there came a time when everybody wanted me to come in a program. I wouldn't come. I would not come because where were you when the lights went in? That's just the way I am. But again, you be the way you want to be. So when COVID came out in 2020, I shouldn't say it that way, but that's kind of how it happened. It was planned, it was leaked, it was scripted. McKinsey Corporation was writing the manual in December of 2019. We didn't know about it. We here, you, me, until February, March of 2020, before it effectively came and wrecked our cities and screwed up our lives. We didn't know about it. We didn't have any inkling of that, but they did. So the state governors, King Governor Ned Lamont, the unaccountable, he knew in December because he had to know because he was online with all those other governors. Now, of course, we don't know that because put it this way, we know it, but we don't know it, but we don't get to see those documents because those documents were buried in the reopened committee of advanced CT, which is exempt from FOIA. That to me is the biggest, shall I say, albatross of any kind of transparency in the state. I see things from Yankee Institute. We need transparency. I see things from Chris Powell. We need transparency. I see things from legislators every once in a while. We need transparency. What about the functional nonprofits? What about advanced CT? What about 4CT? 4CT, we looked at it and we saw that the governor's daughter was working on databases of illegals. Now, I'm sure she does this because she's very concerned about the illegal population. Well, what are you going to do with a database, right? Let your mind run wild. That all said, I don't know how you get to really root out the corruption, the evil, and the fraud and the malfeasance in this state unless you get to things like that. Now, it was the lovely legislature that, gave the informational, shall I say, blackout to functional nonprofits. The UConn Foundation, right? When I started with that, I'm just going to get a sip of tea, if you don't mind. And I've got a little bit of a different table here. So UConn Foundation, when that started, when I started on that, when I pointed to the fact that there was a very large Cayman Island-based multi-million-dollar investment in that foundation. Oh, I heard such things. It has nothing to do with it. What are you looking at? This is a. Why were they concerned that I said that, right? If it didn't mean anything, they wouldn't have said a word. But all these, all these buddy up people were like, how dare I do it? It was meaningless. It was meaningless. Why are you trying to tell me not to do it? But it's like, we should know because it is an investment, being the Horse Barn Hill Investment Fund, which has great connective tissue towards Anne Lamont and BlackRock and Semaphore. We should know that, but we don't. And so as we got into the COVID monster, as we got into the COVID gorilla, if you will, we found uglier and uglier things as we move forward. Please bear with me for just 1 second. I'll be right back. And just going to wave to you. And I'm just going to do this over here to make an adjustment. And here we go. See that? Here I am. I'm trying to get used to all these new things. But anyway, this is coming to you live. The basis of all of this stuff is you want to have a government that people have confidence in, and you want to stop with the foolishness. So as we got into the thing with COVID, more and more things as I got into it started, popping out. And to this day, what I think is disgusting is we've never had any real, rational, forceful agreement or accountability from any politician in any party about any of it. And, it's documented. I've got tax returns. I've got memos. I've got FOIs, the ones they'll give me. Whenever they see an FOI from me, they like to think I forget. And, believe me, if I don't remember, they're never going to give it to me. Many times they don't. I've had some outstanding for years. But basically, the level of corruption and nonsense is so terrible and so insidious that I can only do my best. And it's like where I always encourage you to be my eyes and ears. So, if there's something out there that's real, I want it out there. I want it on this show. I want it on the radio. I want it wherever, because enough of this nonsense. Really, it's just, we ruined what was left of the state by the Lamont dominance and farcical handling of COVID-19. It was so bad, they had to spend $72 million of marketing and media money to construct stories to tell you it was good and tell you how highly rated he was and tell you what a great governor he was and have the Republican Party stand there like a bunch of dime store Indians, and that's exactly what they did, and not challenge him on any of it. And that's basically the way it is. And they might have given him a little lip service, but that was about it. And no offense to our Indian and Native American brethren, but I speak of that artifact that used to be out in front of cigar stores, just standing there holding the cigars. It's an apt picture, okay? Not offending, hopefully not offending anybody, but if I have, I apologize. I'm referring to the picture, not the person. That all said, or the statue. Whenever I see something happening where somebody comes out and says, or somebody, shall we say, in the comes out and says, we've got to do something about corruption, I tend to take a little umbrage. I really do. Because it's like there are a lot of people doing a lot of things on social media, radio, and otherwise. And nothing gets me more angry than somebody coming out, making claims and not supporting them. Now, many times the claims, I don't believe they're untrue, but they're unsupported. And if they're unsupported, they cannot be, as far as I'm concerned, they can't be broadcast. They can't be regenerated, because if I can't prove it, what What value does it have? Now, I catch hell from these people because they say to me, well, you're not doing what's important. Look at what I'm doing. Like, it's no proof. Prove to me to where I can understand it, other than, quote unquote allegations. I have thoughts on allegations. I don't share them. I can't support them. I think they're true, but I can't say definitively. I can't come and tell you that you deserve better. My God deserves better. I deserve better. But anyway, my antenna tends to get a little bit, shall we say, warped when the legitimate media comes out and says, we've got to do something about corruption and oversight. And I don't know the best order to go in here. I'm going to go back to my share and get away from the unaccountable Phil Murphy. And I was reading this article here. This is the Connecticut Mirror. This is an opinion piece. The writer is Chris Powell. And there is actually, let me start over here before I get there. I think I'm probably better served if I go to there. Connecticut Post, and this would have been December 10th. The Connecticut legislature creates a committee to deal with government oversight. This is like the head of the drunks wanting to have a temperance committee. The legislature makes the proposal because of all the messes that we've seen that we need to have oversight. So the people who are the problem want to come to you and say that they are the solution. So there is this legislator here. Her name is Lucy Dathan. She's a Democrat from New Canaan, and she's going to be the chair. And this is an article, Connecticut Post. The writer is Ken Dixon, December 10th of last year. Democratic majority leaders have decided to create a committee on government oversight when the next 2-year term of the General Assembly begins on January 8th. So the people who have been involved in the most fraud, malfeasance, confusion, unaccountability, and twisted nonsense are like, we've got to straighten ourselves out. So you got to ask yourself, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? I mean, are they concerned about what may come to them? Are they concerned about, well, like a kid who messes up his room and his mom says, well, you better have that room cleaned by 6:00 tonight. So the kid does some sort of a faint effort to do it. I don't know. But it's, this is coming from the people where, legislators drive home and don't make it home and turn over cars and legislate drunk and, but we're going to have government oversight and it's going to start at the legislature. I mean, it's like, I guess it's some sort of a, whatever you want to call it, some application of the Holy Scripture that says judgment starts at the house of God. I don't know. But put it this way, if that's the case, it's certainly the wrong church and the wrong pew. But anyway, Senate President pro tempore, actually, I am the only participant here in my meeting. Martin Looney in New Haven says that the intention of the new panel is to replace the something or other panel that was started years ago. House Minority Leader Vincent Candelora says that he hopes that the current Regulation Review Committee, which alternates chairman no matter which political party is in the majority. So, I mean, there's a concern if the committee is even going to be, bipartisan, whatever difference that may make. So Looney says here, I was hoping we'd have a committee that we could review and work with auditors' reports. The new committee would be expected to hold hearings within 90 days. Now, Matt Ritter, the committee would be able to spend the time necessary to follow up on any concerns, increasing accountability and transparency in state government. Candelora says, I hope it's nonpartisan. I don't know what to say to that. And he says, I think we ought to look into vague scandals like higher education, the Social Equity Council, or misbehavior of the governor's staff use of cars. Now, I remember when Bob Stefanowski was running for governor and was talking about the blatant self-dealing going on with Semaphore and Ned Lamont, and Vincent Candelora got a bunch of Republican legislators up saying, well, I think we've spent some ungodly amount of money for investigation. And that all stopped when I came to him and said, look, I'll do it for $5,000. I'll do it with a contribution to my food bank, because I would point right to the issue that was there, and that effectively would have taken down the House of Cards, rather than, giving somebody's homeboy this homejoy non-job, and well-paid homejoy non-job. That all said, it's like, if you really want to fix things, the things are very, very, very easy to fix. But they don't. They don't. They want to make you think that they're fixing it. Now, Stephen Harding, the Senate Minority Leader, says that we should go back to voting irregularities to 2019. While the specific jurisdiction of this new committee is still an open question, of course it's going to be, Mr. Harding. Republicans will try to make this panel as efficient and effective and efficient as possible. There must be accountability in state and quasi-public government agencies. There's no shortage of good government issues to tackle. Sounds like a ninth grade term paper. I mean, basically, this is what I don't understand. I'm going to stop the share here for a second. We do have a group in Connecticut. It's known as the Auditors of Public Accounts. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Very little good, in my estimation, goes on with agencies in the state of Connecticut. As a matter of fact, I think most of the agencies, if not all of them, would probably be gored out, reprimanded, or fired if they were in a profit-making environment. My opinion, but yet I can support that opinion. That said, the Auditors of Public Accounts, now, and I say this as one who works in this business, do an exceptionally good job. Not a perfect one, but a good one. I mean, the work is really good. They occasionally drop things. I don't know if that's political influence or I really don't know. But, none of us are perfect. But yet there is more than enough information in your standard production of really what is good to fine work of the Auditors of Public Accounts to basically send people to jail. It's and the question I ask is, why aren't they going? Why aren't people being prosecuted? Look at what happened at Central Connecticut State University. Look at what happened in the should be abolished Department of Economic and Community Development. Now, if you on your job treated things that the way these people did, and they get away with, well, we agree with your recommendation and we will promise to do better. And nothing ever gets repaid. People don't get demoted. It's awful. It's terrible. There's in some cases they don't get arrested for quote unquote out and out stealing. I mean, it's like, so you're going to have this committee. Let's go back to the share. Let's go over here. Typical Connecticut work. You're going to have this committee, and we're going to look at audit reports, and we're going to have hearings. Okay. What are you going to do if somebody really does something, Lucy Dathan? Nothing. We pay you to have this committee so that you can call these people up on the state nickel, ask a few questions, and say, we're exercising oversight, and nothing ever gets done. This is the thing that's so galling. Meanwhile, Semaphore, the Digital Currency Group, McKinsey Corporation working in advanced CT. McKinsey, the people that were had to pay a huge judgment because of the opioid scandal. The same McKinsey working in Connecticut government, they don't want you to know that. They want you to think this Lucy Dathan is doing something or other. But it's like, we don't deal with that. We deal with things that we think are, cool. And I'm not saying all the things they deal with are meaningless, but basically this whole thing is going to happen. It's going to be one huge circle jerk, and it's got no teeth. It's got no teeth, and it's got no staying power whatsoever. But it's actually, let me go a little bit further. Here's an article. Connecticut Mirror, and this is January 2nd, 2025. I should be technically correct. It is not an article. It is an opinion piece written by a writer, probably most well known to you all. Name is Chris Powell. And this is, I want you to look at this first paragraph. Because of the state government scandals uncovered recently, I mean, hey, Chris, been doing this for 5 years. I told the state about Semaphore. I told the state about the Digital Currency Group. I told the state about Advanced CT. I told the state about 4CT. Uncovered recently. This is new business. I mean, and this is where, honestly, truthfully, I take great umbrage at this. He should know better. He should know better as to what's taking place. And not only that, he should know better as to where the real evil and the crud comes from in the state of Connecticut. And look, there's other people doing it. Hearst Connecticut newspapers. I mean, please. The state people, I guess you're employed by them now. I'm wondering. But the state people who are paid by state dollars to tell us what they want for us to hear. The Connecticut Mirror, okay, you're writing there. The Yankee Institute, Connecticut Inside Investigator. Yeah, you guys lifted a couple of stories from me too. And the New Haven Independent. Now we're going to have a legislative committee. Now, it's, how can I put it? I take umbrage at the fact that if you're going to do this, if you're going to talk about scandals, Chris, if you're going to talk about what is happening in the state of Connecticut, give credit to every single person that brought something meaningful. Give credit to George Colley. George Colley busted his head open with the COVID tests that were, supposedly on the platform. And, the head of the Connecticut Department of Health, Manisha Jitani, was a lying dog saying that these COVID tests were out and were out for delivery, and they weren't. And it was this fanatical cover-up. And Saudi Annie Lamont, the Democrats killed Bob Stefanowski running for governor, but didn't bat an eye when Anne Lamont was involved with the same Saudi people that Bob Stefanowski was involved in. So what this is that this is when you see stuff like this, this is quote unquote the political system and the legitimate media going to protect itself because they hate Tony D'Angelo. They hate George Colley. They hate people that are not them. They want to be able to sit at the table. Oh, yeah, they can say something that maybe isn't right or something like that. But yet what they cannot do is they can't tell it exactly like it is, or they refuse to. Now, with that, Mr. Powell says the committee, Review and Investigations Committee, a lot of good that did, right? Scandal, incompetence, policy failure, and official indifference. Now, it's not that the old committee accomplished much, usually timid and trivial, and the government's committee's abolition signaled that the legislature no longer wanted even to pretend to be concerned. Now, it's unclear how seriously this new committee will take its assignment. I mean, are you kidding me? And the legislature's dwindling Republican minority hopes that the new committee will follow the old committee's bipartisanship by alternating its chairmanships between Democrats and Republicans. Who cares? Who cares? If you're going to sit there and have a card game, I'm not interested. But I am interested if you're going to ask about Advanced CT, and you're not. If you're serious, Lucy Dathan, if you're serious about the real scandals that are happening in Connecticut, you're going to start asking about who actually chose Semaphore. You're going to start actually asking about what took place in that reopen committee during COVID. You're going to start asking about why can't we see the records of advanced CT? Or you're going to start asking about the communications between Josh Gabal and Benjamin Bektolosheim at the Department of Health. And you're going to start asking about what happened with what was the plan with COVID-19? And you can say, oh, COVID-19 is all business. Well, you're full of crap, basically, because they would do the same thing last week with bird flu if they could. I am of the belief that they won't do it because there's too many out there now who are on them like me. They never anticipated this type of organized, whatever you want to call it, investigation and scrutiny. And they have if I could pronounce her name correctly, Sujata, she's a woman, Gadkar Wilcox, a Democrat from Trumbull, a rookie legislator and college professor, who is going to be chairing this committee. And I'm so angry, I don't know what to say, basically. Where should the committee start? Well, I just gave you a bunch of places you could start. What about the digital currency group? Why don't you start there? Governor Ned Lamont came out that night and talked about all the jobs coming to Stanford. Never told you that his wife had a financial interest in that equity. Legalized marijuana. Never told you that his wife's partnership, Oak HCFT, had financial interest in something called Dama Financial, which is whatever you want to call it, marijuana banking. And the scandals that are whatever you want to call it, Mr. Powell was discussing the palatable scandals, the quote unquote, the scandals of the legitimate media, of which we are going to bring oversight to. But there are other scandals, and these are scandals. I mean, they're basically the criminal justice system's coddling of repeated. Yeah, I'm not saying these are valueless, but basically the port scandal, the Port Authority needs extensive investigation and publicity. But who's going to investigate it? The people that caused the harm in the first place? I mean, talking to people there, months and months and months, they tried to get the attention of legislators. If you're paying attention, Republican legislators who basically didn't give it the time of day. And then when everything fell, they talked about how horrible it was. So it's like, who's going to investigate this thing? Why don't you have people investigating that don't have a dog in the fight? Why don't you have people investigating who have no political allegiance? Just take it up, tear it up, and take it right from the top to the bottom. Now, one of the biggest scandals that was never covered is the rental subsidy scandal that happened in Connecticut with the quote unquote free rent money. Mr. Powell talks about another couple of scandals that are here. They're all real. But basically, he says the most compelling would be the Hartford school system's graduation of a student who confessed to being illiterate. You can argue that, but I think the other scandals are worse because they do involve directly our, powers that be, if you will. But it's so sickening in Connecticut. But basically, if you want to talk about the port scandal, actually, I was talking about the rental scandal. It was never, ever, ever publicized. As a matter of fact, you had legislators over there who were standing there saying how wonderful we are, Republicans. Hi, Tony Wong. Talking about, how wonderful it is to hand out free rent money. Go and look at that record. It is disgusting. There are more accounting fees and auditing fees and fees to law firms and gimbacks and gimmies than ever. And not only that, but it was tracked on software that was a Lamont family equity. Why was it called Unite CT? Because there was an equity, which I think is still there in the Oak HCFT Lamont portfolio and Lamont portfolio, called Unite Us, which is basically designed for that purpose. Why didn't you just call it the Connecticut Rental Assistance Act or something like that? Now, it would have been too easy. So basically, I'm going to close this, if you don't mind. I'm going to get another sip of tea. And if you're going to deal with corruption, these legislative types and these mainstream media types and these legislators who basically in many cases are not a part of any solution, but a part of the problem. If you're going to deal with the root causes of corruption in the state, you're not dealing with it. And it's my contention that you're not dealing with it deliberately. What else could it possibly be? Why? Think of this. Think of Advanced CT. A nonprofit organization in a state, a failing business state like Connecticut, a state that's so pitiful that the biggest building in the capital city is, just about ready to go into foreclosure. That's how bad it is. That's how pitiful it is. In addition to everything I've mentioned, in addition to the things that Mr. Powell may have mentioned, and things that are just that about. Where's Wanda? Well, we know one thing. Wanda's not in jail. The biggest concern with Wanda is what if Wanda starts to squeal? That's basically it. I mean, if you don't think that's not the case, there's nothing more I could do to convince you. But basically, if you're going to talk about corruption, why are you leaving the elephant in the living room? Because you're invested in the elephant. The elephant has got to remain, or the donkey, if you prefer to be Democrat. It's your system is tied to this. And I get so angry when, quote unquote, those that say they want to be a part of the solution come out and effectively burnish and color a part of the problem. Like a number of these Republicans are running around now. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday on the Lee Elsey show, and saying that, we have to reform the Trust Act for immigration. It is not a good act. We've got to make it so that it is compatible with federal law. I mean, I've heard Republican people say this that pretend to be attorneys. And I say, hey, wait a minute. Federal law says that any deflection of anything regarding any federal law whatsoever and aiding, abetting, and hindering is a criminal offense. So why are you even talking about arranging those chairs on the Titanic if, it's the Titanic is going to sink anyway? Why aren't you espousing the values of your president and of his Homeland Security director? Because it's not politically proper to do that. And that's the whole problem, basically. And I can't make it any plainer than that, but when the legitimate media, quote unquote, comes out and says that we're going to get to the bottom of this, it's like I don't even bother to listen anymore. I really don't, because you're not. You're not, because your very existence depends on your remaining in that system. My existence depends on, God blessing me with another day. And I'd much rather be telling you the truth as opposed to something that is sugar-coated because we don't want to offend sensibilities or, tick off unions and things like that. I'm not so motivated. I'm motivated by the truth. And so all I can tell you is we go back to the beginning of the show. If you want to forgive medical debt, get politicians out of it. And to the latter part of the show, if you want to get rid of corruption, well, you've got to get to the root cause of corruption. And this winter, I'm going to be on your case, telling you what you're not doing, and if necessary, embarrassing and shaming you, and to stop giving people in Connecticut false hope. The thing is, they know now they don't trust the legislature. They don't trust they don't trust the state-run news sources because they've been lied to too many times. I mean, too many people have come out with proof that what they've been doing over time is just not kosher, just not correct. And I don't know what I can do other than what I'm doing, but believe me, I'm always trying to figure out a better way to do it. I'm always trying to figure out a better way to make things more clear. And people now go to Twitter to read the news, and they should, because they will get the true news. They'll get a lot of junky news in between, but they'll get a whole lot more good, decent, valuable, and truthful matter, if you will, than they are from quote unquote corporate media and or state-run sources. And that's basically what it is. So as we get into this new year, as we go into this legislative session, as we look to see what they're going to do, turn here, turn to me, turn to others who are bringing you what's absolutely positively happening to the best of their ability, and examine everything you get from me as well as to how truthful it is, because I'm not invested in anything but you and the truth. I hope that was okay this afternoon. And still trying to get used to things here, but we're getting better every single day, and I'm very happy about that. It's Tony D'Angelo here on 30 with Tony. We'll be back with the rest of the show right after this.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. I say boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. You got me doing funny things like a clown. Just look at me. When you wear your high-hole boots with your hip hugger suit, it's alright. You're out of sight. And you wear that cute mini skirt with your brother's sloppy shirt. I admit it, girl, that I can't dig it. And I say, boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. I say, boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. You got me doing funny things like a clown. Just look at me. When you wear your bell bottom pants, I just stand there in a trance. I can't move. You're in the groove. Would you believe, little girl, that I'm crazy about you? Now go now with your bad self. Style, girl, that show is wild. And you wear that cute trench coat, and you're standing and posing. You got soul, you got too much soul. I just said to-ga-ga-boo, said to-ga-ga-boo, said to-ga-ga-boo. Now casting your spell on me. But I said to-ga-ga-boo, said to-ga-ga-boo, said to-ga-ga-boo. Now casting your spell on me.
Hello fun seekers. Since we like to mix fun with business, please enjoy another video classic clip, courtesy of the producers of 30 with Tony.
Hello? President. John, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
My God, I watched that with interest, and I saw you were running ahead of us, so I knew you were in.
Yes, sir. Well, NBC did a real poor job on that election night, Mike.
Yeah, I know it, because they counted the Dallas and Houston ones first, made it look much closer than it was, didn't they?
That's right.
What'd you win by?
About 125,000 votes.
Yeah, well, they made it, they were running it neck and neck, but that's what, they don't know what the hell they're doing, those.
It never was neck and neck. I started getting these counties in here, and I saw these rural counties. I saw it running neck and neck in Houston. See, out of over 200,000 votes, I lost Harris County by 1,500 votes.
Yeah.
They thought they'd beat me 40,000 there.
What about Dallas?
I lost the hell out of it.
Did you?
But I lost it about 21,000.
Did you have a newspaper, which one? Did you have both those papers?
I had one of them. I had the Dallas Times-Herald, and the News was neutral. They didn't, they were helping me, actually.
Yeah.
But they went crazy up there, Mr. President. That town, they got a bunch of junior executives up there and society gals, and they're in open rebellion. They beat 5 of their real good conservative Democratic legislators.
Did they really? Elected Republicans?
Yeah. They just went crazy. The business leaders were forming, and they were for all the Democratic slate, but they're just a bunch of, that's the way I know to call them, but just junior executives and these society gals, and they just got them a crusade going, and they just wiped the slate clean.
What did we lose Dallas by? Do you remember in 60?
Yes, sir. You lost over 60,000 votes.
60,000 votes. Hell, I got, they're up there talking to me about having that federal building down there and all the rest of that stuff.
Yep.
I don't know why we do anything for Dallas.
I'm telling you, they just murdered all of us.
Yeah.
But we're going to change that now. Our party's gone down. The last 6 years, I don't want to throw rocks at Price, Price Daniel. But frankly, he just let this thing go to hell. He furnished no leadership. And we saved a lot of it. I carried 205 out of the 254 counties.
Yeah.
And they had a hate campaign going, very frankly. They were running against Cuba and against you and the vice president, me and Billy Saul Estes, and it was a protest. It was a hell of a protest vote.
Yeah.
But really wasn't on state issues, but we came out in real good shape, and everybody's tickled to death. We elected the congressman at large. We lost Slick Rutherford, but that was more or less of a personal thing.
Yeah.
Lindley Beckworth got by, and Bob Casey did, although his was fairly close.
Was Casey close?
Yeah, about 10,000 votes out of over 200,000.
Yeah.
But in San Antonio, the whole slate, the only place we really got hurt was in the Midland area and in Dallas.
Yeah.
But we're going to start rebuilding this party down here. I'll tell you, it's going to be a hell of a different story in 64.
Yeah.
But they've organized now. They knew wherever vote they had. They had them on IBM cards. They knew the names, they knew the telephone numbers, and they knew the street address of every vote they had in every big city in Texas. And hell, they just got them out to vote. They voted as high as 85 and 90% of their strength.
Yeah.
And we voted 60%.
That's it, isn't it? That's what's
Sure.
good.
But I just couldn't build an organization in a year's time. See, they've been building in Dallas for 10 years since 52.
Yeah.
But basically, we came through in real good shape, and 125,000 votes in the light of the money that they spent, the effort that they put out, was a pretty resounding victory down there.
Yeah.
And so you ought to be pleased by it.
Well, I'm delighted you won, John. That's very good.
I want to come up before long and see you. I don't have any real business, but if there's anything I can do, you just let me know.
Okay, good. I'll see you soon, John.
All right, sir. Thank you for calling.
Okay.
I got some troubles, but they won't last. I'm gonna lay right down here in the grass, and pretty soon all my troubles will pass. 'Cause I'm in Sugar Town. I never had a dog that liked me some. Never had a friend or wanted one. So I just lay back and laugh at the sun. 'Cause I'm in Sugar Town. Yesterday it rained in Tennessee. I heard it also rained in Tallahassee. But not a drop fell on little old me, 'cause I was in Sugar Town. If I had $1 million or 10, I'd give it to your world, and then you'd go away and let me spend my life in Sugar Town. La 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 la. La 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 la. La la
Got a match? It's a fabulous club. Look at all the fabulous people. You wanna dance?
Yes, I'd love to.
Let's party a little bit.
All right.
Looking on my feet in the disco heat, dancing through the night, the morning light, shine on me. Again, music makes me dance, 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 dance. Dancing total freedom, freedom, something really freedom. Come on, get up, swinging, swinging, sliding, sliding.
Find us.
Get on your feet and dance to the beat and dance. Dance the day and the disco. Get up and dance. Dance the day and the disco. Come on and dance. Dance the day and the disco. Get up and dance. Dance the day and the disco. 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 Dance the day and the disco.
Well, thanks, Kemosabe's. Thanks for staying with us. So happy to have you here today. And many of my life experiences have been fashioned by the people I knew. I had a client once. It was a nice elderly gentleman, and he could not understand why his house taxes, he lived in Brooklyn, New York, were lower than everyone else's. I didn't exactly know the reason, so he told me the story, and he told me that both he and his mother were over the age of 65, and I said, well, maybe because your property taxes are grandfathered. And he looked at me and says, grandfather, Tony, what does that mean? I said, well, it's a concept that was developed under the Civil War, during the Civil War, where I believe, if I understood it correctly, that if you were a person of color, you can vote if your grandfather was actually in the country when you actually were able to vote. And he looked at me and said, there's something terribly wrong with that. I said, why? He said, well, your property taxes should never, ever, ever be determined by the color of your skin. It'll catch you in a while. It's Tony D'Angelo here on 30 with Tony. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with us, and we'll be back next week with an even greater show. So long.